Hello and welcome to the show. Today we're diving into some of the most controversial and talked about moments of Joe Biden's presidency. Now you might be thinking, John, why you? Shouldn't you be making fun of, say, a pigeon who learned to gamble or something? And you'd be right, that does sound more on brand. But look, Biden's presidency, it's been a wild ride. From policy missteps to public gaffes, we'll cover it all. We're talking Afghanistan, COVID, the economy. It's enough to make you wonder if someone slipped something in his insurer. Buckle up, because we're about to dissect this thing with the precision of a brain surgeon who may or may not have misplaced their scalpel somewhere along the way. Let's start with a bang, shall we? Or more accurately, a whimper followed by a whole lot of chaos. The withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan in August 2021 was, to put it mildly, a bit of a shit show. The images of desperate Afghans clinging to departing planes were seared into our collective memory, a stark reminder of the human cost of this botched operation. Now, Biden had inherited a bit of a pickle from his predecessor, let's be fair. The Trump administration had negotiated a deal with the Taliban that, frankly, even a pigeon trained to gamble wouldn't have touched. But Biden, in his infinite wisdom, decided to stick with it, albeit with a few tweaks. The problem was, the tweaks didn't quite cut it. The withdrawal was rushed, poorly planned, and ultimately, a strategic disaster. The Taliban swept back into power faster than you can say, "Where did I leave my aviator sunglasses?" and Afghanistan was plunged back into turmoil. The Biden administration argued that they had planned for every contingency, but honestly, if your plan involves thousands of people desperately trying to climb onto a moving aircraft, you might want to go back to the drawing board. The whole thing reeked of incompetence, and the American people were left wondering what the hell had just happened. It was a major foreign policy blunder, one that will likely haunt Biden's legacy for years to come. And let's not forget the 13 U.S. service members who tragically lost their lives in a suicide bombing at Kabul airport during the evacuation. Their sacrifice deserves to be remembered, and their families deserve answers. The Afghanistan withdrawal was a tragedy on multiple levels, a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the consequences of political miscalculation. And it's a stain on Biden's presidency that won't be easily washed away. COVID-19, the pandemic that just keeps on giving, like a gift that keeps on taking. Biden came into office promising to shut down the virus, which, let's be honest, is a bit like promising to shut down the internet by yelling at your router. To his credit, Biden did oversee a significant ramp-up in vaccinations, which helped to curb the spread of the virus. Remember those endless lines at stadiums and pharmacies? We all became intimately familiar with the phrase, "My arm is a little sore," but it wasn't all smooth sailing. The rollout of the vaccine was initially plagued by logistical issues, and the Biden administration faced criticism for its handling of testing and mask mandates. Remember when we were all supposed to be wearing cloth masks? Those were the days. And then there was the Delta variant, followed by Omicron, and suddenly, we were all back to square one, hoarding toilet paper and arguing about whether or not it was safe to go to Applebee's. The Biden administration's messaging on COVID-19 was often confusing and contradictory, leaving many Americans feeling frustrated and uncertain. One minute we were told the pandemic was over, the next we were being urged to mask up and stay home. It was enough to give anyone whiplash, or at least a mild case of existential dread. Look, it's important to acknowledge that Biden was dealt a difficult hand. He inherited a pandemic that had already spiraled out of control, and there's no denying that he made some progress in combating the virus. But the Biden administration's handling of COVID-19 was far from perfect. There were missteps, mixed messages, and a general sense that the administration was always one step behind the virus. Chapter 3. The Border Crisis, a Humanitarian Challenge. Let's talk about the border, shall we? That ever-present source of political controversy and human drama. The Biden administration inherited a bit of a mess at the southern border, with a surge in migrants seeking asylum in the United States. Now, immigration is a complex issue, one that's been debated ad nauseum for decades, but there's no denying that the situation at the border under Biden has been, well, chaotic, to put it mildly. Images of overcrowded detention facilities and children separated from their families sparked outrage and condemnation. The Biden administration faced criticism from both sides of the aisle, with Republicans accusing them of being too lenient on immigration, and Democrats accusing them of not doing enough to address the humanitarian crisis. The Biden administration promised to create a more humane immigration system, but the reality on the ground has been far from ideal. The system is overwhelmed, understaffed and struggling to cope with the influx of migrants. And let's not forget the human cost of this crisis. Migrants are making dangerous journeys, risking their lives in search of a better future. And many of them are being met with detention, deportation, and a system that seems designed to keep them out. The Biden administration needs to do more to address the root causes of migration, such as poverty and violence in Central America. They need to work with Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform that provides a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. The border crisis is a complex issue with no easy solutions, but one thing is clear: the status quo is unsustainable. We need to do better, for the migrants seeking a better life and for ourselves. Chapter 4: Inflation and the Economy. A bumpy ride. Remember that feeling of euphoria when you got your first stimulus check? Yeah, those were the good old days. The US economy has been on a bit of a roller coaster ride since Biden took office. We've seen record job growth, which is great, but we've also seen inflation soar to levels not seen since the days of shoulder pads and leg warmers. Remember when a gallon of gas cost less than a kidney? Pepperidge remembers. The Biden administration argues that the current economic woes are largely due to factors beyond their control, such as the ongoing pandemic and the war in Ukraine, and they're not entirely wrong, but they've also made some questionable decisions such as pumping trillions of dollars into the economy, which some economists argue has fueled inflation. Remember that whole transitory inflation thing? Yeah, about that. The rising cost of living is hitting Americans hard, especially those who were already struggling to make ends meet. And it's eroding Biden's approval ratings faster than a sandcastle in a hurricane. The Biden administration needs to get a handle on inflation, and they need to do it fast. They need to address supply chain issues, reduce government spending, and restore confidence in the economy. Otherwise, we're all going to be eating ramen noodles and living in our parents' basements for the foreseeable future, and nobody wants that, not even your parents. Chapter 5: Public Gaffes and Misstatements, the gift that keeps on giving. Look, we all make gaffes from time to time. We've all had those moments where we've put our foot in our mouths, said the wrong thing at the wrong time, or accidentally called our boss mom. It happens to the best of us. But when you're the President of the United States, those gaffes tend to be amplified, scrutinized, and turned into viral memes faster than you can say corn pop. And let's just say that Biden has provided us with a veritable smorgasbord of gaffes and misstatements during his time in office. There was the time he called Vice President Kamala Harris, President Harris. Awkward. Or the time he seemed to forget the name of the Australian Prime Minister, not exactly a great look on the world stage. And let's not forget the countless times he's stumbled over his words, lost his train of thought, or generally seemed confused about what's going on. Now, to be fair to Biden, he's 80 years old. That's older than sliced bread. And his stutter is well documented. But these gaffes have raised concerns about his mental acuity and his fitness for office. His opponents have seized on these gaffes as evidence that he's not up to the job. And even some Democrats have privately expressed concerns about his age and his ability to handle the demands of the presidency. Look, the presidency is a tough gig. It's a 24/7 job that requires stamina, mental sharpness, and the ability to think on your feet. And Biden's gaffes have raised legitimate questions about whether he's still got what it takes. So, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of some of the most controversial and talked about moments of Joe Biden's presidency. It's been a bumpy ride, to say the least. These moments have sparked significant debate and controversy. Some argue that Biden is doing the best he can under difficult circumstances. Others believe that he's in over his head and that his presidency has been a disappointment. What are your thoughts on Joe Biden's presidency? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the political landscape. Until next time.